was just born to swing, that's all. Call it what you want. Blues, swing, jazz. It caught a hold of me way back in Memphis, and it looks like it won't ever let go. Lil Hardin Armstrong. I was born to swing, and that's the truth. We lived in a boarding house in Memphis, just a little way from Beale Street, where the music never stopped. The father of the blues himself, Mr. W.C. Handy, used to march his band right down that street, and all the children would come running. But not me. Oh no. Devil's music, my mother called it, and she kept me far away. She couldn't keep me from the organ in the parlor, though. Every chance I got, I hopped up on that stool. My legs weren't long enough to reach the pedals, so I sent my little cousin crawling down below while I tickled the keys. The day came I was good enough to play the organ at Sunday school. I'd play a hymn, but I'd play it with a beat. The pastor used to frown at me over his spectacles like this. Oh, I was swinging. I put something new in those old hymns. I didn't know it yet, but it was jazz. I took piano lessons at Mrs. Hicks' School of Music. Her top student was a girl named Bertha, but I made up my mind that I would be number one. It came down to a contest, Bertha against me. I sat down at the piano and I flung myself into the music. Oh boy, I flung myself so hard I lost my place. Well, now what? I had lost my place, but I was not about to lose that contest. Not without a fight. I sat up straight and smiled, and I played that song right to the end. Well, I played something anyway. Whatever came into my head and out my fingertips, that's what I played. Later, I would learn to call that jamming, improvisation. That's what jazz musicians do. Back there at Mrs. Hicks' School of Music, nobody knew what to call it. But we all knew who the winner of that contest was. My mother took pride in my talent so long as I played the classics, Beethoven and Bach. Then, one day, she caught me hiding Mr. W.C. Handy's song, St. Louis Blues. She chased me with a broom, but it was too late. That new rhythm had already swept me off my feet. Suddenly, it seemed like everyone was on the move, heading for the cities, heading north for better opportunities. The Great Migration had begun, and we went too. Chicago. State Street was like Beale Street, only better. They called it the Stroll. I called it heaven. City lights, sharp dressers, music any hour of the day or night. I was nearly grown, but I still looked just like a little girl. 85 pounds, that's it. Nothing to show the city but the widest smile and the biggest bright eyes. Out on the stroll, I stopped to look into the window of a music store. All that sheet music. Oh, gee, how I wish I had the money to buy every song. Inside, I asked if I could try a number out on the piano. Mrs. Jones, the owner of the store, came over to hear me play. Next thing I knew, I had a job. Every afternoon, I sat at that little piano by the window. Soon, I'd learn all the latest songs. The store was packed with customers. They called me the Jazz Wonder Child. One day, a man I'd never seen walked in the store. He sat down at that piano and, oh boy, he had it rockin' in no time at all. His feet were stomping. He played hard. Everyone was jumping, going wild, calling out, "Oh, Jelly!" That was how I met the great Jelly Roll Morton, who invented jazz. Or so he'd like to say. All the jazz musicians came into that music store to jam. When a band needed a new musician, they called the store, and Mrs. Jones would send somebody over to try out. The New Orleans Creole Jazz Band needed a piano player, but every man that Mrs. Jones sent over, they sent back. finally she sent me. A girl playing piano in a jazz band? Not in those days. Women were called canaries, singers. The musicians were all men. I had to show them I was no canary. When the music started, I hit those keys hard like jelly. I may have only weighed 85 pounds, but I used every pound. Did they send me back? What do you think? There I was, swinging with the swingin'est band in Chicago. I laid those rhythms down so hot they called me Hot Miss Lil. I was playing at the Dreamland when a fellow from New Orleans came to town, Louis Armstrong. Louis was not a handsome man. His clothes were out of style. But when he blew that horn, oh gee! Soon we started walking out together. We'd play with the band all night, then hit the stroll. Everybody in Chicago knew Miss Lil, and I made sure they all knew Louis Armstrong too. Naturally, we had a jazz wedding. Then we joined the band on tour. Every night a different city, every day back on the road. It was no honeymoon. But we had each other and we had our music. That was the jazz age. Seemed like all America was young and happy, just like us. Louis and I wrote songs together, played together, even put a little band together to make records. The Hot Five. Oh, we were hot all right. The sweat poured off of us while we played our music into that recording horn. We played hard. We thought the good times would last forever, but the roaring 20s ended with a crash. Hard times for America and me. Louis was moving on. Jazz moved on too, and I moved right on with it. These were the days of the big bands. Duke Ellington, Cab Calloway, and me, Miss Lil. I did it all. I wrote the songs. I led the bands. Men, women, oh, it made no difference to me so long as they could swing those tunes. After the war, I tried out other things, running a restaurant, designing clothes, but the music wouldn't let me go. It took me all the way to Paris, where the French had flipped for Le Jazz Hot. Back home, everyone was going wild over a new kind of music they called rock and roll. They'd forgotten about jazz and me. Or so I thought. All those years making our music, turned out we were making history. The day came when people played my songs again. They put me on TV. They said I was a living legend. Miss Lil and jazz. We had grown up together and grown old together, but I never lost the beat. You won't believe me, but I died at the piano, playing that St. Louis blues, playing hard. Oh boy, I went out swinging. Right up to the end, I had the widest smile and the biggest, brightest eyes.
Now all the gals on Park Avenue have highbrow songs to sing, but I'll stay here on Lenox Avenue where I was born to swing. Now some folks got plenty money, some folks got philosophy, but I've got good old swing.